I'm going to share my screen. Oh, recording. Very exciting, very official. All right, I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to turn my camera off just because I was having bandwidth issues this morning and I want to make sure I'm able to give all of my bandwidth to my screen share. So the goal today, folks, is to go through kind of basic website navigation, moving around the ATI account, moving around the website and the different features, and we'll look at some of the products as well. So when you log in initially, if you haven't yet added cohorts to your dashboard, this is what you'll see, is this customize home screen here. And if you do need to add cohorts, you can do that by clicking the blue customize home button here in the center of the screen. This will give you a list of available cohorts at Widener. And most institutions have that set up as graduation dates. So you might see like 0522, and Andrew or Maggie, you can jump and correct me if Widener does it differently. But typically you will see the month and year of graduation date there. These are just some demo cohorts that I have here in my demo account. So I'm going to choose this 1021 training, and maybe I also want this 1021 PTS. I could manage multiple cohorts. When I've checked the cohorts I want, I'll click save in that blue banner at the top and then view dashboard. And then I'll be able to see any cohorts that I'm managing. If you ever want to add new cohorts or get rid of cohorts you're no longer working with, you just find this little gray add remove cohorts. Click that, it's going to take you back to that same screen. And maybe I don't want to manage 1021 BTS anymore. I can uncheck that, save, view dashboard, and now I just have that one cohort. So now that we've got that out of the way, I just want to show you kind of the whole website, top to bottom, left to right. So over on the left hand, we have this navigation panel. If you're on a smaller screen, that might not be visible to you. If that's not visible, you just click these three lines in the top left, and that should open that little navigation pane for you right there. All the way over on the far right at the top of the screen, we have this red bell icon. That's where you can find news and alerts about updates, changes. If the site's going to be down for maintenance at some point, you can find all of that information here. And these three vertical dots just to the right of that will open a little menu here. One thing I'd like to highlight is this ATI contacts. If you click that, that'll open up a little pop-up. It'll have Maggie's information and some of the other email addresses and phone numbers for you to get in touch with your ATI team. And then if we drop all the way down to the bottom right, I want to point out this LifeRaft support icon here. That should follow you around everywhere you go in the website. No matter where you are, you should always see that LifeRaft support icon. If we click that, it's going to open up this little menu here. And the first thing you'll see is this issues with the website. If I click that, it's going to open a PDF, and this will walk you through clearing your browser's cache and cookies and setting certain settings in the back end of your browser to optimize ATI for your browser. This has instructions for Chrome and Firefox and Safari. So if you are having website issues, if something's not behaving the way you expect, I would encourage you to first thing, open that support icon, click on that issues with the website, and follow those instructions. If you do that and you're still having issues, down below is this contact ATI. If we click that and click contact us by phone or chat, it's going to open a little pop-up. And here's where you can find this 1-800 number to our tech support office here. And they are open 7 to 7 Central Time, so that's 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern Time, Monday through Friday. You can also start a live chat with someone by clicking this red bubble over here, or even right in that support icon, there's a little chat tab. If you click that, you can begin a live chat with a real live human being, not a robot. And there are also a number of other topics that you can explore in the support icon here. And you can also search for a topic by typing in a question here. All right, so we're gonna look at this cohort that I have here on my screen. You see I have the name of the cohort listed, the number of students, and then in the center I have this big number, this big percentage. That's my pulse score. So that's of all the students in that cohort, that is their average probability of passing NCLEX on their first attempt, right? And I can see more information about that by clicking this blue Explore button. And it's possible you won't see a number there yet for your cohort if your students have not taken enough proctored assessments yet. But as they take more assessments, that score will populate and update. So here I see that number, and I can see of these students, I have 8 who are at risk, 1 who needs improvement, 3 who are on track. And then down below, I can see my roster, and you see most of my students have a non-applicable for their probability of passing and for their risk category. That's because those students haven't taken proctored assessments yet. But if I click this header, I can actually filter by that percentage. And so here I am, Dylan Phillips, I have a 1% probability of passing NCLEX on my first attempt, right? So there's still a chance. Maybe I should try. Just a background about me, I don't have a nursing background at all. My mother and my sister are both RNs. They worked labor and delivery. I was a humanities guy. I majored in English. I was a high school English teacher for 8 years before I joined ATI. So that's why maybe I shouldn't take the NCLEX. And we can see my risk category, I'm at risk. But down below, we have some other people who have higher probabilities of passing, all the way up to 95% here. This student is on track. Right. Back to my home tab. The next button, excuse me, beside Explore is Manage. If I click Manage, that's going to take me into that cohort, and this is where I'll be able to manage most of the settings for the cohort, where I can enable tutorials and assessments. Okay, across the top here, we see the name of the cohort. I could also change the cohort from here. Now, if you notice on the left, I'm now on the Products tab. I was on the Home tab, now I'm on Products. If you're just managing one cohort, you could click Products and it would take you right here. I recommend getting into the habit of clicking that Manage button though, because if you do manage more than one cohort, if you just click on Products, it may not take you into the cohort that you want to work with. So by getting into the habit of clicking Manage, it's going to take you right to that cohort. Just to the right of that, we have the number of students who are in this cohort. And if I click Manage Roster from this screen, it's going to take me down to the People tab. See how the tab has changed once again. And here is a list of all the students in that cohort. Now, if I click on any one of these student names, not the checkbox, but just click on the name, it's going to open up an individual overview for that student. I can see their name, their email address, their user ID, and then down here at the bottom, I can see if they have a time accommodation. Okay. Now, users with instructor level access will not be able to change a time accommodation, but you will be able to view if there is one. Right. So I have this little slider switch. You may not see that slider switch, but you will be able to see if they have time and a half or double time. Only users with director level access can modify a user's time accommodation. And right up here at the top, if I go over to faculty roster, also from the People tab, this will show me a list of all the other instructors at Widener. This is, of course, it's just my colleagues and my demo account here, but you'd be able to see the other instructors at Widener, and you can see the role. So if, for instance, if you have a student who doesn't have a time accommodation showing, but you know that student has told you, I've been to the Office of Accessibility, I should have a time accommodation, anybody with that director level access is somebody you could reach out to ask them about changing that. There are a few other features that only somebody with director level access can change, and you can find those people from the faculty roster tab. All right, back to products. Now, just to the right of that manage roster, we have that CDN code, which you may already be familiar with. That's the product ID code that students need to input in order to load their ATI products. That's also when the student's name is populated onto your roster. Okay. So if, and different institutions do it differently. So Andrew or Joanne or Maggie, anybody feel free to chime in. But sometimes the instructor gives it, sometimes it's from the bookstore. But at some point, a student will need this number and enter it into their ATI account to load their products and join the cohort. You can even click this Generate Memo button here, which will create a PDF. with detailed instructions for the students on how to enter that code. And that code will be in nice big bold letters right in the middle. You can print this off or email it as a handout, however you want to use it.
I have a question, because who does give these students their product code? Because they should be the freshman seminar people for the most part. So is it given by, do we know? How do they get that code?
Andrew, Maggie, do either of you know?
Yeah, I think for the most part, it is occurring in the freshman seminar cohorts, because that's when they're originally picking up their books. And you go over kind of those start modules. I would think if anyone slips through the cracks, I usually get those emails of, hey, we can't find this person, we need the cohort number. And then I just do that same thing that Dylan described as generating that PDF memo and sending that out. But that is where I would say 98% of our clientele is enrolled in that freshman seminar instance.
Right, because I know I have to give it to those transfer students usually, or those students that were exploratory. They're in the same bucket.
Yeah.
So they end up
coming over 125.
In 125, right?
Yeah, that works.
Yeah, and the only thing to add in is that the bookstore isn't an equation with this. So we don't have to worry. I don't want anyone to get confused that and direct their students to the bookstore. And I completely echo what Andrew just said, that it usually goes in that freshman level course. And Dylan, you're probably getting this to this point eventually with the people tab, but that might be somewhere to help with some of those students that have created the accounts, but then forget that next step of adding that code. But I don't want to, take over Dylan's presentation. So
no, that's okay, Maggie.
Yeah.
So, sorry, Maggie, your point here was about reassigning students, or?
So I think, a common thing I see is that students create their account and then they don't add the code, or there's movement. So that's kind of where the people tab can be useful for those to figure out who is missing. But then if they didn't do that part 2 for adding their CDN code, you can reassign a student to a cohort if you have director level access. And there are quite a number of Widener faculty who have this elevated access level to do more of those administrative tasks.
Right, so those students, Maggie, would be showing up under no cohort assigned, is that correct?
Yep, or if you search by their last name. Yep.
So you could search for a student here, and this would show you students who have not yet joined a cohort. The cohort would show as no cohort assigned. If you have director level access, you could check that student and reassign them to a different cohort. Yeah. All right, so back in the products tab here, which you can also get to by clicking manage on your cohort. Here we have a number of tabs. We're going to start with highlights, and here you're going to see the section labeled ready for review. This is where you will find some of the products that have activities that students complete, which are not automatically graded, but need review from an instructor. So for example, Engage Fundamentals. Some of those modules include an electronic health record chart exercise, and students can submit that chart for grading, and you can review those here. Skills modules also has a charting exercise, and video case studies. Students can record a video or write a written response to a prompt, and those responses will be found here in the ready for review section. So once you find the assignment you want to review, you can click start review on the appropriate product and go through those responses. All right, the next tab over is manage products. And this is where you're going to see a list of all of the products for that cohort. So let me refresh my page, got the error there. You're going to find a list of all the products in the cohort, and you can modify some of the settings here. This is where you can enable and disable products, where you can find the tutorial ID for products if you want to pull a report. And we'll just, here's all the products here. You're going to probably see some on my screen that you won't see in your own account. That's okay. I'm just in my demo account, so I have really everything under the sun from ATI here. So we'll just use this video case studies RN 2.0 as an example. All right, there's the name just to the right of that in the next column. This is that ID. So this is the ID you would need to pull a group or an individual report to check your students' progress in that tutorial. So I'm just going to go ahead and right click and copy that. And later when we look at the analytics tab, I'll show you how you can use that ID to pull a report. Moving on over here under enable disable, you see this column of green locks. All those lock icons, if they are green, that means that they are enabled. Students in this cohort have access to that product. If for some reason you wanted to turn a product off, you would click that green lock, give it a second or two, it's going to turn red, and then you'd click this green Save Changes button in the bottom right. By the same token, if you have a product that is disabled and you want to enable it, click the red lock, and it will turn green. And then you click Save Changes. Now, a little farther along to the right under Access Modules is this little orange plus icon. If I click that, this is going to show me all of the individual modules within the product. So Video Case Studies RN here has, I believe, 40 or 50 modules. And these are organized alphabetically here from acid-base imbalances all the way down to wound evisceration at the bottom. And these individual modules can be enabled or disabled. So you could have Video Case Studies turned on, but some of the modules turned off, if that's your preference. This little gear icon, if you see this on some tutorials, it will let you set additional settings for Video Case Studies. If I click that, that will let me say if I want students to be able to submit a video or a written response, which is the default, or maybe I just want to see video or just written responses, I could make those changes. Keeping in mind that any change you make here is going to affect the entire cohort. So if you're sharing this cohort with other instructors, any modifications you make in that module, any other students that try to access that module are going to have be subject to the same settings. I'm sorry, my internet is doing a fast one on the ATI site today. While we wait for that to load, the next thing I want to show you is, you may have seen there was that little key icon there. Some of our products will have that, others won't. Others are going to say NA. So if you see that key icon, you can click it to get a preview of that module. And it's really kind of a limited preview. It's not really the full experience. So I'll click this acid-base imbalances video case study here. So this limited preview is going to show me just the video that students would see and the prompt, the question they would be asked. And then I can also immediately see this expert answer. Here's a video responding to that prompt from a nursing content knowledge expert. Now, it's important to understand that when students are accessing video case studies, they can't look at that expert answer until after they've answered the question, right? So students would first, they'd see the video and the prompt. They would have a little space to record a video response of their own, or they could write out a written response. And then only after they submit that, they would then unlock the expert answer. They could view that expert answer, and then there would be a little space for them to write a reflection on their answer now that they've seen the expert response. So you can see that the student experience is a little different from the preview icon. So the preview, the key icon, can be useful for planning purposes, or I even know some instructors who will pull this up in class and show the video and discuss it in class. So there are ways you can use this, but if you want to see the full experience of any product, I recommend doing that through the student view feature in your account. And we're going to be talking about that a little bit later today. All right. Now, beside managed products, we have this tab for assessments. And this is where you can enable all of your assessments. So just as an example, I'll just pull up a fundamentals assessment here. So I have this RN Fundamentals 2019. Let's see how I was able to search right here in this little magnifying glass blank here. I just started typing fund and it immediately pulled this up. This is also going to filter any custom assessments that you've built with Custom Assessment Builder. So ATI assessments will be up top, custom assessments will be in the bottom, but you can use that single search field to filter all ATI and custom assessments. And they work pretty much the same way. Custom assessments are enabled the same way I'm about to show you. You can pull reports the same way. And if you make a proctored assessment with Custom Assessment Builder, you would proctor it the same way. So I'm just going to click on this RN Fundamentals 2019. And I have up here at the top section, I have practice assessments. And then down below at the bottom, I have my proctored assessments. Typically, you're going to see two practice A and practice B, and then one proctored. Down here, we just have some extra test IDs loaded into this demo account, but typically you're going to see two practice and one proctored. There is a test ID here for each of these assessments, and you can use that as well in the analytics tab to pull a report, but there's actually an easier way to pull these assessment reports, and I'm going to show you that in just a moment. Now, over here under Enable, there are all these little slider switches with the red locks and this blue lock. If the lock is blue, that means the assessment has been enabled and students have access to that. Now, these practice assessments, as long as they're enabled, students can go in, they can access them anytime, day or night. They could take them at 3:30 in the morning if they wanted to, right? These aren't being monitored by instructors. They're not being proctored. Students can take them anytime they want. They can stop in the middle and come back and resume where they left off. It's a lot more lenient than a proctored assessment. If you turn it off, it's disabled. Students can no longer access it. Now you can do that manually. And as long as it's blue, it's going to say always enabled here. So it's going to stay available to students in this cohort until I come in and turn it off. Alternatively, you could click this little calendar icon and you could set a date range in which you want the assessment to automatically turn on and then automatically turn back off. So you see up here above, this one has been set up to go live on September 1st at midnight and then turn off on September 15th at 11:59 p.m. So if you have your course calendar set up ahead of time, you could go through here at the beginning, front load your work and set these practice assessments to turn on and off as you like. Now to the right of that, we have this column for rationales. If that box is checked, that means rationales are turned on. Students will see answers and explanations as they move through the assessment. If you uncheck that box, rationales will be turned off. Students will not see answers and explanations, but at the end, when they look at their results, they'll still be able to see topics to review. They just won't see the specific answers to questions. And then I just want to jump all the way to the end here to actions. This little 3 vertical dots here. If we click that and click advanced settings, this is where you can set time between attempts. So here, this one is set to 48 hours. The default is 0. So at the default, students could take this assessment over and over and over all day long until they get the results that they want. Right. And if you think about with rationales turned on, right, students are going to see those rationales. They may be memorizing rationales rather than actually critically engaging with the content. So one way to manage that is by setting time between attempts. This can be set anywhere from 0 all the way up to 999 hours, which is about 41 days or so. I don't know. I don't know why you would use that unless you just want to prevent students from retaking assessments, but that is an option. Discard those changes. Now, if you recall, I said there is an easier way to pull assessment reports. So we have that ID, which you could take to the analytics tab, or under analytics here, this little line graph button. If it's darkened like this one, that means there's data there. Students have taken that assessment. If it's grayed out, there is no data. So with a darkened button, if I click that, that's going to open a little pop-up with the dashboard. And this is going to show me my group average score and the number of attempts. So there were 34 attempts, and the average of those attempts is 27.8%. If I scroll down, I'll see all of these names. These are individual students, and I can see when they access. So Matt here accessed it on March 12th, 2020 on his first attempt, scored 28.3%. Just below that, I can see how much time Matt spent in the assessment. He spent 10 minutes and 19 seconds. And then all the way to the right, I can see focused review time. Focused review is our customized remediation plan. Every time a student takes an assessment, their results are going to generate automatically a customized review plan. And so I can see how much time that student has spent in remediation for the plan for that assessment. So Matt has spent about 37 minutes in his focused review. Bronwyn here has spent 16 and a half hours remediating on this assessment, which is that's quite a lot of time. And I wonder if anybody's done a second attempt here. These are all first attempts. No, okay. Well, if there was a second attempt, I would see, like, if Michael Shedd came in here and took it again, I would see attempt 2, and you could see all the attempts. I've seen students sometimes with like 7 attempts. So if you have a student who's taking an assessment over and over trying to hit that benchmark, you will see a record of all of those individual attempts. Clicking on any one of these student names will populate a PDF of their individual report. And in the top right here, if I go to this export and view PDF, that's going to create a PDF of the group report, the same report you would see if you went into the analytics tab, which is a few more steps. So again, I personally recommend using the assessments icon from the assessments tab here, but I think that's just a little bit of a simpler way to pull that report. All right, so those are all practice assessments. Down below, we have our proctored assessments. A lot of the same stuff here, right? So that we have the enable and disable switch. If a proctored assessment is enabled, students will be able to see it, that it exists in their test tab, but they're not going to be able to enter it and start answering questions until you begin the proctoring session. But by the same token, it does have to be enabled before you can start proctoring. So keep that in mind. And in fact, notice this little button over here, this little bar graph button. It's darkened right now. Clicking that button will let me begin proctoring. If my assessment is disabled, that button's going to be grayed out and it's going to let me know I have to enable this assessment before I can proctor. And are you folks going to be proctoring all in person, or will there be any remote proctoring this year? What's the plan?
I think we're back to in-person proctoring, but I don't know if we had that formal discussion about what we're going to do with ATI though.
Okay. So if we're back to in person, then we probably don't need to worry about Proctorio, is what I'm feeling. But if you see that Proctorio option there, if you're proctoring in person, you're going to want to make sure that checkbox is not checked. And only somebody with director level access can actually change that checkbox. So you may not have access to change it yourself. You'd have to ask a director to uncheck it for you. But if you're proctoring in person, you want to make sure that is not selected. If you find that you are going to be proctoring remotely at some point, that's a different conversation. But as long as you're proctoring in person, you want to make sure that's not checked. All right, so I'm going to show you, the next tab is the Proctor tab. So I'm going to have this Fundamentals 2019, it's enabled, and I'm just going to click on this Proctor button, and it's going to take me straight into the Proctor tab. There's going to be a little pop-up here to remind me not to administer a remote test without using an approved method like Proctorio. And here I can see that assessment is already selected for me. Right? So I could have gone to the Proctor tab first, and then I could search for that assessment here and then check it. But I like to do it the way I just showed you, because you can only search assessments that have been enabled here, and there's no option to enable an assessment from this screen. So going through the cohort to the assessments tab, finding your assessment and enabling it is a great way to ensure that that assessment is enabled before you proctor it. Now, proctoring is a simple 5-step process, and those steps are laid out for you here at the top of the screen. The first step is proctor training. This proctor certification course is embedded right here in the Proctor tab. I click that little down arrow. It's just a 20-minute course, and you want to make sure that you do complete that course prior to proctoring any ATI assessments. The system will not allow you to proctor assessments if your certification is expired. And this has to be done annually. So you see, here's my expiration date right here. I have to do this again sometime before January 7th, 2022, or I won't be able to proctor assessments. I could recertify at any point that I wanted and would push that out a year. If I did it today, then I would have until September 28th, 2022. I can view my certificate from here as well. There are also some proctor guides and resources that are embedded here just beside the certification course. I'd like to point those out. So that's step one. You want to make sure you do that at some point. Whenever you have 20 free minutes, right? With all of your tons of free time. Next is selecting the assessment, which has been done for me with the way that I went through and clicked that proctor button. And then as you move forward, you'll complete an agreement. You'll check some little check boxes and type in your electronic signature. And then step 4, you check in students. And then in step 5, you'll actually begin the proctoring process. I don't want to get into it too much now because I don't want to overwhelm you and have you forget this. But folks, my offer to you is that when you are about to proctor an assessment, maybe a week or so beforehand, and you know this is something you're going to be doing maybe for the first time, reach out to me, email me. I would be happy to connect with you over Zoom and just kind of quickly walk. Maybe it would take me 20 minutes to just quickly walk through the proctoring process and show you how that works and what it looks like. Is anybody proctoring anything very soon by any chance?
No.
No, not yet.
Really?
Okay.
Jamal, are you?
No. I did few assessment last year, but not this year.
Well, when it comes time to proctor, like I said, reach out to me, or you can reach out to Maggie or Katrina. They'll get in touch with me. One of us will certainly be able to help walk you through that proctoring process. It's very simple, but I know sometimes it's just better peace of mind to see it first. So if I show you now, you'll forget. But like I said, reach out to me. I'm happy to walk through it with you closer to when you're proctoring. All right, the next tab below Proctor is the Assessment Builder tab. This is the Custom Assessment Builder, which is a pretty robust tool that allows you to make your own assessments to be given through the ATI platform. You can build practice assessments as well as proctored assessments. And you have access to a question bank of about 3,000 questions. And those are completely separate from the questions on the pre-existing ATI assessments. And they're also separate from Learning System, which is a separate question bank that students have access to. Students don't have access to this quiz bank and Custom Assessment Builder. You can also upload your own custom questions. You can edit the ATI questions. There's a lot of customization available here. It's actually a really robust product. So we don't have the time to go into the nitty-gritty of it today. It's kind of its own training by itself. But if you would like to look more at Custom Assessment Builder, let me know, let Maggie know. We can arrange a training special for Custom Assessment Builder. In the meantime, though, I will highlight a couple of resources where you could go in and learn more about it on your own. All right, and now below that is that Analytics tab, which we've been talking about. So you have a few different analytics tools here. The one I want to focus on right now is this classic reporting. So if you recall, when we were in the products tab, I highlighted that video case studies RN 2.0 tutorial ID, started with the letters TUT, and I copied it to my clipboard. So now if I go into classic reporting, there's sort of two halves here, right? We have assessment reports up at the top and tutorial reports at the bottom. This top portion is where you would pull assessment reports using those assessment IDs. But if you recall, clicking that line graph icon is maybe a little bit of a quicker way to do that. But down here at the bottom, we have those tutorial reports. Video case studies is a tutorial. So with that ID that we pulled, we would drop that into one of those blanks here. So we have group reports, individual reports, combined reports. I'm going to build a group report by pasting that ID that I pulled earlier into that blank. I'm going to click enter. And now it's going to prompt you to choose a module. The default is all modules. I'm just going to warn you, if you want to pull that report, you better click build and then go get some coffee or dinner, or maybe even go away for the weekend. It will take a while to build. So I'm just going to choose one module right now. I'm going to choose acid base imbalances, and I'm going to click build. And here's that PDF group report here. So I can see combined use here. I've got 37 students in this group, 37 attempts. Combined time of 5 hours and 54 minutes out of all 37 of those users. A combined time of 1 hour and 10 minutes on the test. Every video case study has a little 5-question assessment with it. So we've spent about 6 hours in the case itself and 1 hour and 10 minutes in the assessment. And then we would also have information about the instructor score, but that just says NA here because we don't have enough instructor feedback. Now, here I can see all of my users. So here's Matt, for instance. He went in on August 25th at 1:51 and spent 1 minute in the case. Right? So we can see each time a student enters, we can see when they go in, date and timestamp, and time spent. Shannon here has spent 33 minutes. Megan Jackson spent 40 minutes. And I'll show you in a bit in your resources. You can look at the educator implementation guide, and it will show you ATI's recommended benchmark for how much time students should spend. For video case studies, we recommend students spend about 60 minutes in each case. So these are all coming up a little shy, right? Especially these 1 minute, 2 minutes, but that 40 minutes may be a bit closer. Down below, we have those submitted cases. We have scores. If we have incomplete, that means they did not do it, right? Not reviewed means they submitted it, but an instructor has not yet graded it. And then if there's a number, that's the instructor feedback. They can get a score of 1, 2, or 3. So 3 is the maximum for video case studies. And then down at the very bottom, we have students who have attempted that 5-question assessment. And we see the composite score and then each individual student's score and the time that they spent in that assessment. So these tutorial reports will vary a little bit from product to product because every product is a little different, but you'll be sure that you'll find all of the information that you would need for time spent and scores in each of those products. Any questions so far? We've been going a while and I haven't stopped for questions. So I just want to make sure nobody's feeling too overwhelmed.
No, I don't have any questions.
Okay, great. Wonderful. We'll just keep plowing.
I don't know if you're going over this, but there's another place to get questions besides the custom assessments, correct?
So there are 2 big question banks: Custom Assessment Builder, which only faculty have access to, and then Learning System, which students and faculty have access to. And those are 2 separate question banks. Yeah. And I'll show you Learning System when we go into the student view feature. Good question, though. All right, next tab is the People tab. We looked at that already when we looked at that student roster. I'm going to skip ATI Academy for now, but I am going to come back to it. We're going to go all the way down to the bottom to resources. From the resources tab, we have a number of topics. Website Basics has a lot of information to get you started, right? There's a faculty quick start video, getting started guide, some information to get you started with your ATI account. Here's a section on analytics. So we looked a little bit at the analytics tab, but you can get much more into advanced reports. I would highlight for you this how to use the report wizard and how to create custom reports. So if you find that you want to get a little more into the weeds in creating more advanced reports, here's some great resources to help you learn how to do that. There are some proctoring resources. This ebooks and active learning card here. You can access all of the ebooks, both in the ebook format with the embedded enrichments and in PDF. You can also access these from your student view. And you have your active learning templates here. There is an educator implementation guide for active learning templates, which will walk you through ways to implement these into your classroom, some strategies and activities. These are also the templates that are attached in students' focused review, which is that remediation plan we were talking about earlier, and I'll show you an example of one of those a little bit later. But there are 8 different active learning templates you see here, and you can download an editable template. So here's the basic concept. You can see this is a blank one where you can type right in it, or you can print off a blank one and have students fill it out by hand. You can also download this educator sample, which will show you an example of a completed template. Back into resources. Now this products and integration, this is a big one. I think this is where I'd recommend you spend a lot of time, especially as you're becoming more familiar and comfortable with some of your products. Here are all of our products listed here, and each one of them has its own little library of resources. So for example, we've been talking about video case studies. So we'll just look at that one. I'm going to click the little plus beside it. We have a little product overview video. And then down below that, we have our educator implementation guide. Every product has an educator implementation guide. Most of them are about 10 or 15 pages, right? This one is 111, which seems a little overwhelming, but it's actually a really great guide, and it's one of my favorite ones, and I'm going to show you why it's so long. So here in the table of contents, every educator implementation guide is going to give you a description of that product. It's going to tell you about some features, recommended use and time. This is where you can see how much time students should be spending in those modules. So we were looking at that report before. I just saw a chat pull up here. Oh, okay, that wasn't for me. All right, so if I look at page 7 here, recommended use and time. Each video scenario is approximately 5 minutes or less. It's recommended that students spend about 60 minutes on each video case, with a recorder response of about 3 minutes, but not exceeding 5 minutes, or up to 2,500 written characters. So we looked at that report before, and we could see how much time students were spending in the case. You could compare that to the recommended use in the educator implementation guide here. Back up to our table of contents. There's always a section on implementation strategies. Every educator implementation guide will give you some ready-made strategies for using this product in your classroom. And then where video case studies gets really exciting, this particular guide, the reason it's so long is we have broken down by content area some extra discussion questions and activities for every case in video case studies. So if I'm teaching fundamentals, I go to page 42, and I'm going to get 2 pages for every case that's relevant to fundamentals content. So here's oral care. I get an overview of the activity, the question that students are asked. Here's a little rubric for reviewing it. And then down here at the bottom of that page, I get 2 extra discussion questions where I can continue that learning in the classroom, right? And you can only find those questions here in this guide. So students won't see these in their module. This is for you to continue that learning in the classroom when students come to class. Then on the second page, still oral care, we have 2 activities here. We have a tree of impact activity and a concept map activity. These are some extra class discussion activities. Moving on, cultural diversity, got those discussion questions at the bottom, and then we've got a self-reflection activity and a small group activity. So this is just a really handy guide for taking that module. You assign it, students go out, they do it, they come back in, now you have these activities to continue that learning. And then you see there are a lot of other resources here as well. Video Case Studies has these virtual clinical replacement lesson plans, which you can open up. A number of these products have different kinds of resources. Some of them have lesson plans, some of them have PowerPoints. I would encourage you, for any product you're thinking of using, to come into the resources, go to products and integration, and look at that educator implementation guide, and then just peruse through the other resources available for that product. And I also want to show you this assessments and focused review section in the resources tab. I mentioned before, Custom Assessment Builder is a little bit too large of a product to go into detail with right now. But if you go into assessments and focused review and click the plus beside custom assessment builder, there is a user's manual here. And this will walk you through pretty much step by step how to create an assessment, how to create a custom question bank, how to edit questions. And it's all laid out very neatly in this table of contents. So you don't have to read the whole thing. You could just go through the section that's relevant to you. You can also find some information about the ATI assessments here. If I look in RN assessment information, maybe I'm teaching adult med surg, I'm giving that proctored assessment. I want to plan how long is this assessment going to be, right? Well, I can see here in this test description, it's 100 items. The students will have 100 minutes to complete it. So that's useful for planning purposes. I can also see a sort of a skeleton of what that assessment will test. You have also a test description for the practice test, and then you also have these practice topic descriptors. You should not share these with students. We recommend this is for faculty eyes only, but this will give you the topic descriptors for that practice test. All right, so when I'm learning a new product with ATI, the first thing I do is I go to the resources and I read all those resources. And then the second thing I do is I go into the ATI Academy. So I'm going to click on ATI Academy now. Just give it a moment here to load. The ATI Academy is a resource only for faculty. This is not something that students have access to. And there are a number of video resources here that can help you learn how to use products. And there's also some professional development opportunities in here as well. So here I am in the ATI Academy. I'm on this home tab here, and I'll see any courses that have been assigned to me or courses that I have previously engaged with. But if I go to this content library tab, from here I can search for just about any topic. So if there's a specific product I want to learn more about from ATI, I can search to see if there's a course here. So I could search for assessment builder, right? We were talking about assessment builder before. And I see here, this green icon shows this is a product training course. If I click on that, here are a number of videos to help me learn how to use assessment builder. This is everything from just how to use it to how to report, how to pull reports. And there's just great video at the end here about leveraging reports on assessments and using custom assessment builder to build remediation tests for your students. So this is kind of an integration video here. So there's a lot of great resources here for all of the products. Also, a great refresher here is this website navigation series. It's going to cover a lot of the same content that we're covering together today, but if you need a refresher, if you go to Content Library and search website navigation, if it's not already in your home. Sorry, this is running a little slow for me. Here we go. Click on this ATI website navigation series. And there are a number of great video resources in this collection as well. We actually just added a lot to it recently. For a while there, it was just these first 5 videos. So if you've been in here before and you just saw those 5 videos, now you see there's a lot of new content added down here below as well. But this is great because it just breaks things up into manageable chunks. If you want to review using the analytics tab, here's a 13-minute video just on analytics. If you want to review using student view, here's a 9-minute video on student view. Here's a 20-minute overview of just the basic navigation of the website. So this can be a great refresher as you're becoming more comfortable with ATI. And finally, I also want to point out where you can find some professional development opportunities here in the Academy. I'm going to go back to Content Library, and over here on the left, if I, oh, well, maybe this has been changed recently. Oh, here we go. Okay, it just had to load. If I scroll down a little bit and find professional development, if I check that box, so it's going to show me all of the courses with a red icon. And these are professional development courses. Andrew, I see somebody just entered the waiting room. Do you want me to let that person in, or do you? Okay. Yeah, all right. And so these, as I was saying, these red icons are professional development opportunities, lots of topics here as well. And some of these will have C&E credits attached to them as well. And you can access those in your achievements tab, any certificates that you earn here. All right, so that's ATI Academy. Now, the third thing I would do when I'm learning a product is I would go into my student view and just play with that product, right? Get my hands on it. So student view is kind of hidden in the top left of your account here near your name. If you click that down arrow, you get this little menu here, and the first option is student view. If you click that, click continue. This is going to change the appearance of the ATI site to what a student would see. The student account is very different from the faculty account. Like I said, I was a high school English teacher for 8 years. The LMS that we used, what I saw was totally different from what my students saw. And it was often a point of confusion when I would tell students where to go. And they were like, no, we don't have that. We don't know what you're talking about. So I did not have a feature like this. I wish I did, but this allows you to see what your students see. So this creates better empathy, better communication with the students, and it gives you the opportunity to just go in and play with these products. So the students have these 4 tabs here. They start in the home tab. They'll see news on the left. They have recent activity in the center. These are everything they've engaged with in the last 30 days. There's a link to a student nursing blog here on the right. And they also have a support life raft icon. The topics in there is a little different. This is a little more geared towards students, but they do have access to this library of resources. And then up here in the top right, that add product, that's where they would add that CDN code that we were talking about before. Right, the second tab is My ATI, and this is where all of those products live. So if you're instructing a student who's unfamiliar with ATI, how to access a product, they start by going to the My ATI tab. And then within that, there are 5 additional sort of sub tabs: the Learn tab, Test, Improve, Apply, and NCLEX Prep. This is what we call the ATI learning loop, right? Students learn new material in that first tab. This is where they find their ebooks and tutorial modules. Then they test on what they've learned with their practice and proctored assessments. After they take those assessments, based on their results, they go to the Improve tab where they access focused review, they remediate, then they apply what they've mastered to real world situations and simulation activities. And then near the end of their program, or even a little after they graduate, the NCLEX Prep tab houses products specifically designed to target their preparation for the NCLEX. So in the Learn tab, we'll look at a few products here, just as some examples. Okay, thank you, Maggie. I just see Maggie just dropped a chat with her email in there and that she has to hop off, but thank you for joining us, Maggie. All right, so we're going to look at the ebooks. So this RN ebook library, I showed you, you can also access those from your resources tab, but students will access them from here. So if I want to open my fundamentals ebook, I'll just click that green ebook button. Right, and you're going to see kind of a theme here. We've got navigation on the left and content on the right, and that's going to be pretty much what you're going to see for most of the products. Always navigation on the left and content on the right. So I have my table of contents here. I can go straight into chapter 1 of my ebook. And then if I click this right pane, it's going to open up and I can read chapter 1. And you can see I've been in here before and I've highlighted and I have a bookmark that I put in here. I'll show you how to do that. Sometimes there will be some enrichments embedded right in the middle of a chapter, like a video that a student can watch or a PDF that they can open. And then at the end of every chapter, you're going to have an application exercise, which you can think of kind of like an end of chapter quiz. Highlighting and annotating is very easy. You just highlight text with your cursor and let go. It's going to open up this little menu here. I can leave a note. So if you have students like to write in their books, you can do it right here. I can highlight in one of 4 groovy colors. Right? I can attach a web link, or I can hyperlink to another portion of the ebook. I can also create a bookmark by clicking this little bookmark icon in the top right, and then my cursor turns into a bookmark, and I just go and click and drop that to the left of any content that I want to bookmark. I click contents on the right to reopen that table of contents. And then I have these tabs at the top here. So if I click on the bookmarks tab, here are my bookmarks that I've dropped, right? And I can delete old bookmarks from here as well. This enrichments tab will let me jump straight to any of those embedded enrichments, videos or PDFs. And this quizzes tab will let me jump straight back to those end of chapter quizzes. I'm going to click this close button in the top right here. That's how you would exit any product from Student View.
Dylan, do we have access to those quizzes that they take from
Yes.
their book?
Absolutely. Okay. Yeah. So you can do anything that a student could do from your Student View. So in fact, I encourage you to, right? So Student View is a safe space. You cannot break it. You are not going to affect any of your metrics or your reporting. So I encourage you to go in there and take one of those end of chapter quizzes. You can really take any of the assessments. You can do anything here that you have access to. So, and push all the buttons, pull all the levers.
Right. So when the students do take these quizzes, though, we don't see the scores that they got. That's just for their learning, correct?
That's correct. Okay. Also in the Learn tab is where you would find all of our tutorial modules like Nurse Logic 2.0. You see here this green modules button. It shows me the number 4. That tells me there are 4 modules within there. If I click on that, it's going to show me the list of the modules: knowledge and clinical judgment, nursing concepts, priority setting frameworks, testing and remediation. Each one of these modules has a lesson that I can begin or continue if I've been in it before. And there's always a beginning and an advanced test for each of these modules in Nurse Logic. And once I've been in a module, I can click the blue button to look at my results. And again, you can take these tests. And these, Donna, you would have access to. So these are a little different from those end of chapter quizzes. These would come up in that report we were looking at before in the analytics. If you pull a Nurse Logic group report, you would see how much time they spent in the lesson. And then you would also see scores for the beginning test and scores for the advanced test.
Right. What I have them do is they print out their certificate and they upload it to, their Canvas assignment. So I don't have to be looking at anything. It's all as an assignment.
Okay, I see. I've heard of people who do it that way as well. You're not the only one that I've heard of doing that. All right, so if I click continue lesson here on knowledge and clinical judgment. Let's see again, we have navigation on the left, content on the right. This one's a video.
The ATI Helix of Success
Turn on closed
is the model
captions.
that illustrates how knowledge and clinical judgment form the basis for nursing practice.
We have a tools menu here in the top right. We can open a glossary, a calculator, or a critical thinking guide. We can use the blue arrow to move chronologically through the module.
Knowledge is the acquisition of facts.
Or we can use the navigation on the left to jump straight to content. And there are some drills at the end of these modules as well. And these are not things that would be graded. You would not see these results in a report, but this is just instant information for the student. Click submit, and it's going to show me instantly, I got that wrong. It should have been this choice. The Learn tab is also where you would access Pharmacology Made Easy, dosage calculation, Engage fundamentals. Those are all going to navigate pretty similarly to what we were just looking at there. Sometimes you'll see a card with this little red bubble. So Engage Fundamentals here has this little Learn More bubble. If I click that, that's going to open up a little menu with some resources. Keeping in mind, this is what students see. So students have access to these resources. So if you're a fundamentals instructor and you want your students to use Engage Fundamentals and they're having trouble with the charting feature, you can instruct them to click that red Learn More button. And there's 2 different PDFs teaching students how to use the EHR tutor charting functionality in Engage Fundamentals. There's also a getting started video here as well. And these are all resources with a student audience in mind. All right, we're going to move on now to the test tab. This is where students will access those practice and proctored assessments. Practice assessments will have cards down here. You see, here's my RN Fundamentals Online Practice A, which I've taken before, so I could retake it or I could look at my results. Proctored assessments are going to show up in this top box here that says, note, there are currently no proctored exams in session. When a proctored exam is in session, it will display here. Just like it says, it's still going to look like a card like this, the same design, but it's going to go straight to the top of the page and be inside of this little box when there is a proctoring session that is live. So students, when they are ready to take that proctored assessment, you start your proctoring session, they can go to their test tab and they'll see it right here at the top. They'll click begin and they will enter into that proctoring session. Now, other than practice and proctored assessments, the test tab is also where students can find Learning System 3.0. And that's here, that's a quiz bank. So I'm going to click this green quizzes button. And we have 34 standard form quizzes here. These are quizzes that are always the same. The questions are in the same format each time. But then at the top, we have sort of my favorite part of Learning System, which is this dynamic quizzes dashboard. And this is, Donna, you were asking about that other question bank. This is that other question bank. But bearing in mind, though, that students have access to all of these questions. So you wouldn't want to use any of these questions with a test with any level of stakes, right? Because students have access to these as well as all the answers and explanations and rationales. Where I think Learning System really shines is as a student-driven tool. Students who are asking for additional practice questions, who are struggling with specific topics, they can come here and they can create their own custom practice quizzes. They don't have to wait for you to assign it to them, right? So if I click on new custom quiz here, I'm going to show you all the customization features that students have access to. So there's 3 different modes here. I can make a quiz in test mode, in which answers and explanations are only available after the quiz is over. And whatever my results will be included in my performance metrics. That's separate from the reports that you see. This would be on my dashboard. I have this little performance grid here. I don't have any data here yet, but it would show my average score and it would show my peer rank with other students nationwide, not just at Widener. Sort of the opposite of test mode is study mode. This one is not included in your performance metrics, but it's kind of like an open book quiz. You have access to all of the answers and explanations even while you're taking it, and you can attempt a question multiple times. So this is really just more about looking at questions, becoming more familiar with different item types. It's very much more a study tool. It's, you're not really holding any level of accountability here. And they can also create a computer adaptive test, which functions very similarly to the NCLEX, right? It's going to adapt to their performance. As they're answering more questions correctly, those questions are going to get harder. As they're answering more questions wrong, those questions are going to get a little bit easier. We're going to create a study mode for now. Now, here I see I have access to 2,988 questions. That's how many questions are in the RN library for Learning System. I can filter to only pull questions that I've never answered before, or only questions that I've previously gotten wrong if I want to focus on areas where I struggled a little bit, or questions I've never seen before. I can filter by difficulty level. I can include all difficulties, or I could just focus on easy questions, or maybe I just want to focus on hard, moderate questions, right? Subjects, I can focus on all subjects, or, maybe I'm just really working on that med-surg information right now, right? So I can just target that. I can choose how many questions I want to include, 10, 25, or a custom number up to 200. And I can choose if I want my test to be timed or untimed. So I'll click Start Quiz. And this is great because it has so many little features where students can go in and engage with and study with these questions. So for example, I can highlight any portion of a question. I can use the strikeout tool to visibly strike out answer choices, right? You have students who like to do that on paper tests to cross out answer choices. You can do that visually here. I have access to a calculator and lab values. And because I'm in study mode, I can choose an answer and I can check my answer. So tell me that's wrong, but I can try again. If I was in test mode, I would just move on to the next question. I would find my score at the very end. Because I'm in study mode, I can try again. Right? All right, and now I got it right with option D. And then I can show explanation. And here it shows me all of my rationale information. And then over here on the right, it has this peer comparison. And I really love this because it shows me the difficulty level and it shows me across the nation, users of learning system, how have they answered this question? 70% of students got it correct. They chose option D, right? 13% chose B, only 7% chose A. This isn't a great example, but sometimes I'll see one where maybe like 60% chose D and maybe like 35% chose B, right? And I think that's a great thing to look at, because if I was a student, I would think, well, geez, you know, why is this distractor catching so many of my peers? What's the trap? What's the check? What's the catch? How do I avoid that? How can my study plan help me to avoid making these same mistakes that so many of my peers are making? I can also leave notes for questions, and these will save. So this is just really, it's a great kind of a headquarters for students to just look at practice questions and engage with those questions and think about those questions and study those questions. I can also open a question list here and see all the questions on this assessment, jump straight to them, read any notes that I've left, and I can browse questions up here. I can search topics in the questions, and then I'll browse through the full 2,988 question bank. So this is really a great resource for students. You can, as a faculty member, create an assignment and assign it to students, but I think it really shines when students go in and engage with it on their own.
And as a faculty member, are you able to see how much engagement they had while they're in playing with these questions?
So you can pull a dynamic quizzes report through the analytics tab. I haven't actually pulled one for dynamic quizzes, so I'm not sure exactly the information it would give you. I don't know if Katrina is still on, if she might want to pull a report just to see what it looks like for us. But I do know that you can pull learning system reports, because I've done that for a couple of people recently, but I've done it for practice for the standard form quizzes. But I know that one of the options in the modules drop-down box is the dynamic quizzes, which is where they are. So
do you want me to pull one, Dylan?
Sure, if you don't mind, just go into the ATI and go into that 1021 training cohort and pull the tutorial ID for learning systems and choose dynamic quizzes for the module and just see what that pulls up. I'd be curious because I've never actually pulled that report. That's a great question, Donna.
Well, it's just that I coordinate nursing 125, intro to nursing, nursing 202, intro to general nursing. And this was like quite a few years ago already. I had made, and I guess they're custom assessments for these students just to see what kind of questions that they would be, taking regarding, the fundamental concepts we talked about in class were gerontological concepts. There weren't a lot of questions I thought they could answer. So these assessments are only like 25, 30, questions.
Right.
But I know it's been said, don't be using them for these types of quizzes per se, because they sort of are, it's sort of a quiz to see
Right.
at the end, could they answer these types of questions? Not that we test them like that in these courses, but this is what they would see as they go on in other courses. And they have a little more context and they have, some experience. So I'm thinking I shouldn't even be using those and using quizzing more.
I see.
That's my thought.
I see. Well, I think Katrina's going to work on that in the background. We're going to move forward for now. Katrina, feel free to just interrupt us if you find anything interesting. All right, the next tab here is the Improve tab, and this is where students access focused review. That's the customized remediation plan, and that's really the only function of the Improve tab. There are no other products here. So this is a list of all of those assessments that are in my account. If I scroll down, I'll look for one where I have results. So I've taken this RN Fundamentals Online Practice A. I got 26.7%, not so great, right? If I click the Study Materials button here, and then the first time a student would actually see this.
I have the report if you want it.
Oh, okay, great. Well, can you just see what it says? Like, does it tell you how much time students are spending in Dynamic Quizzes dashboard, or what kind of data is it giving us?
Yeah, so I did the group report and it breaks it down by module overview on which sections, like nursing care of children, med surg, what they spent the most time on, how much time, what their composite score was. And then it also gives you what their composite scores were. And then it breaks it down to individual for each student, what their score was, you know, how many minutes they were in the system itself. So it gives you a lot of metrics to really consider and look at.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you for doing that, Katrina.
You're welcome.
Okay, so I've taken this online practice A for fundamentals, and when I click that study materials, here are all the content areas, the topic areas where I need to remediate. Psychosocial integrity, basic care and comfort, safety and infection control, pretty much everything, right? Because I didn't do very well. So if I click on continue or begin on any one of these categories, it's going to take me back into the ebook, but with one key difference. It's going to highlight and call out for me those specific chunks of content that I need to review. Right. So here's number one, spiritual distress is a challenge to belief systems. Click over here. Here's that number one yellow, and that yellow line shows me right down to this bullet point. That is content that I need to review. That is content that I did not master based on my personal assessment results. Right. So for every student, this is going to look different. And then I click this little focus review button here on the left to open that window back up. And then I can see here's number two. If I click that, it's going to take me, here's number two, coping. This little section right here, I need to review that, right? And we don't just want students to passively run their eyes over the text, right? You know, they're not actually learning. So we have those active learning templates. We talked about these earlier. These are embedded right here. Focused review will automatically choose the best template for the learning. So this is the basic concept. If I click on that, here I've started to fill this out. You can see where I've written my really insightful comments here, yada, yada, blah, blah, right? Hopefully your students will write better comments than that. You can write comments here and click the blue save button. And then if I click download, I'm going to get a PDF of that report, of that template with all of my content that I've typed. Alternatively, you could just have the student download the blank version, print it off, and write it by hand. You see there's lots of space here, a lot of white space, so there's plenty of room for students to fill this out by hand. So that's really up to you if you want to have them type it or write it by hand. I have heard some people worry about copying and pasting, but I've actually gone in here and tried. I can't right click. It won't let me. And I've tried highlighting and using Control C and Control V, and it actually won't let me do that either. So it is pretty secure. Of course, you know, we all know that where there's a will, there's a way when it comes to students, right? So it's really up to you if you want to let students type here or handwrite. Right. And then once I've gone through all of those topics to review, I can take a little post-review quiz, right? Now, I've already taken mine. It would be a button right here that would say begin quiz, and I've taken it already, and here's my score. I got 5 out of 26 correct. That post-review quiz is going to give me questions specific to those content areas that I did not master beforehand. All right, it's not asking me any of the questions that I already mastered. It's asking me that content that I needed to remediate on. And after I take that quiz, it's going to generate a second focused review where it's going to say, okay, you know, even after that, here's the stuff you're still not quite getting. So it's really a two-tiered approach here with the remediation. And folks, one thing I would encourage you to do is at some point, go into the test tab, find a practice assessment, take it, don't do your best, right? You're all smart people. You're all competent nursing educators. So you could probably get 100%. Try not to, right? Try to get 30%, right? Try to do badly on purpose. And the reason I say that is because then you can come to the Improve tab and then you will have a focused review and you can go in and access the focused review and see what it would look like for a student. Next tab is the Apply tab. This is where you'd find those simulation activities like video case studies, which we've been talking about, is found here in the Apply tab. Also, skills modules is found here in the Apply tab. Skills modules 3.0, we've got that Learn More button there again. Here's those PDFs and videos for students. Click the modules button. You're going to see that I have 30 learning modules, right, with pre-tests and post-tests and lessons. That's going to navigate very similarly to the products in our Learn tab. And we also have these 5 virtual scenarios as well. And that is, I worry that my internet connection right now, it will not support that, but this is going to give you sort of that video game look with nice 3D rendered characters talking, and it puts you in the shoes of a nurse where you are making the decisions, everything from how you introduce yourself to the patient, to the questions that you ask, and the interventions that you take. And then again, that NCLEX prep tab would be something students would approach near the end of their program or after they graduate. After the My ATI tab is the My Results tab. From here, students can access kind of a complete transcript of everything they've done with ATI in the life of their program. They'll see all of their proctored assessments. I don't have any listed here, but all their proctored assessments by name, the date they completed. They'll see their score, their national mean, national percentile rank, the level that they achieved, and they'll see information about how much time they spent remediating and focused review. I'll see all my practice assessments here, and I could click on this to open up just that practice assessment report if I wanted to see that more specifically. But here's a lot of information for me already. I can see when I completed it, my score, how much time I spent on it, how much time I spent in focused review, and the score I got on that focused review post-review quiz. And then I can see all of my tutorials too, right? There's time I spent in Engage Fundamentals, time that I spent in Nurse Logic. All that information, everything I do ATI is captured here on the My Results tab. And I could click on any one of those to see more specific information, or I could even click this download report to download a PDF of my full transcript. And finally, students also have access to a help tab where they have some FAQs. This is kind of like their version of your resources tab. So if students are struggling, they can come here to with some help for navigating their accounts. And that is the student view feature. And up here in the top right is where a student's account would say sign out, but for you, it says return to faculty account. If you click that, it's going to take you back into your faculty view. And there we go, 90 minutes of ATI. So hopefully you don't feel too overwhelmed. Does anybody have any questions about anything?
Yeah, I have a question. Like once students start their ATI module, can they leave their module open? Because I have seen some students spending like 15 hours on doing one module instead of like
yes,
I don't know how that's happening.
That's a great question. They can, that report is tracking time spent. It's, like since they're not actually answering questions, they're just in a module navigating, it's hard to know, are they really reading or did they open this and walk away and binge Netflix, right? So eventually the site will time out and kick them out of there. I'm not sure the exact time of inactivity that's required. But yes, to answer your question, students can try to trick you by opening a module and leaving it open and walking away.
Yes. And also, like if they want to practice, for example, dosage and calculation, can they select just that topic when they create their own quiz?
You're talking about in learning system, those custom quizzes? Yes,
Yes.
they can choose which topics they want to focus on, and they can really make it as broad or as specific of a custom quiz as they want.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, of course. Thank you for your questions.
And also one more question, do students get the same orientation as we get like this? Because I see like some students struggle how to download their report and
So we do have some student orientation options, and Katrina, I don't know if you want to maybe send those options out.
I can. There are several different student orientation options. You really have a lot of choices. The student can go into the actual Learn tab, and there is a recorded one there. There are live ones too posted. Usually during that fall period, there's a lot of different dates and times. And then there's also the option to have a live one done. So you have like lots of different options. We always want to express the fact that if leadership wants to pick the recorded one, you want to stick with what the other students have in the other cohorts. So it might be a good idea to talk amongst your peers to see what they're utilizing.
We do have like a 32-minute pre-recorded video that we can send you a link to. And also here in the student account in the Learn tab, there's a product called ATI Plan. And that's sort of a shorter orientation option. It's only about 9 minutes. There's also a little assessment, a little kind of a quiz, but that gives you a 9-minute video where students it'll walk them through how to access products, how to move around their ATI account, how to get to the My Results tab, stuff like that. So there are a few options for sure. I'll make sure that either I or Katrina will follow up with them, with you folks about that.
okay, thank you.
And I know that probably in freshman seminar, these things should be posted in every section of all of these, for all of these students. I know I put them in 125 again, just in case they weren't listening the first time around or they forgot. And then also those students that are coming in that are transfer students that wouldn't have gotten that information. So are they looking at them? I don't know. That's another story.
Yes, and I see in my notes that Widener was chosen the recordings to give their students. So I'll make sure that either Dylan or I send that over to you.
All right. Well, folks, thank you all so much for your time today. And let me drop my email in the chat as well. So if you do have any questions, you can always reach out to me or to Maggie or Katrina. We're all here. We're sort of your team, right? We all work together to ensure that you're supported. So feel free to reach out to me if you need to. Thank you so much, Andrew. I appreciate everybody's time, and I hope you all have a great day.
Yeah, for sure. We'll see you again on
Thank
Thursday.
you.
See you on Thursday.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.